Victor Wembanyama just put up one of the craziest stat lines in NBA history. 30 points, 7 blocks in 24 minutes. The only player in the history of the league to reach those numbers in under 30 minutes and throw in 6 rebounds and 6 assists too. And it came against Scoot Henderson and the Portland Trailblazers. And in the matchup of the first and third overall picks in the 2023 NBA draft, Wemby certainly came out on top. But I do want to talk about Scoot really quick because this was a really interesting Scoot Henderson game. Now, I made a video not too long ago about Scoot, talking about how his start to the season has been really concerning. Not very efficient, turning the ball over a ton, and it also had to do with the kind of misses and the kind of ways that he was missing at the rim, jump shots, a lot of weird turnovers. That stuff is still happening. He's still not finishing well enough. He's still turning the ball over too much. There are still games where he's going to completely airball jump shot. None of that stuff is a good sign, but he has been better lately. Still not super efficient. Last night's game is a great example of that. Not very efficient from the floor at all, but the confidence is rising. You can start to see a little bit more of what Scoot was as a prospect. After a very weird beginning to the year, there's a little bit more bounce in his step, a little bit more confidence, and there are still weird misses at the rim. He needs to get better at finishing, certainly, but on jump shots, a little bit less of the weird turnovers. There were some positives from this game. He's also been coming off the bench a ton for them at various points throughout the year, but he actually started this game because Anthony Simons did not play, and you could start to see him get into more of a rhythm in the ball screen stuff, hitting some of these in between jump shots, hit a couple of threes. It all looked very good, making some good decisions in the pick and roll game. It's still not perfect. There's still a long ways to go, and there's still concerns for how he began his rookie season, but it has been better, and this game was a really good example. But Victor Wembanyama is on a completely different level right now. There actually was a little bit of a dip in his play over the prior 10 or 15 games or so, where he was really inefficient from the floor, still really impactful just because of his size and his length defensively, but offensively, there were some concerns. But San Antonio's made a change recently where they started playing him at the 5 way more. Less Zach Collins and Victor Wembanyama in the front court and more Sochan and Victor Wembanyama in the front court. They've also basically given up on the Sochan at point guard thing, thank goodness, and they've decided to give guys like Devin Vassell a lot of on-ball reps in ball screen action with Victor Wembanyama, and last night was a great example of what that can look like and how devastating Victor Wembanyama can be at the 5. And I understand why they wanted to play him at the 4 alongside another big, being concerned about how skinny he is. But I think that's probably his long-term destiny. Unless you can find a bruising big that can play alongside him and space the floor, someone like Isaiah Stewart or something, Victor Wembanyama's long-term destiny is probably at the 5, and last night's game is a fantastic example. 30-7, 7 blocks in under 30 minutes, 24 minutes to be exact, is just an out-of-control stat line. And this game was a great example of exactly why Wemby needs to be playing at the 5. Offensively, the things where he gets in trouble with, especially with how this Spurs team is constructed, is a lot of these, mid-post isolations where he has to create these advantages where, yes, he still has a lot of skill for a guy that's his size and great body control, but that's not really where he needs to be operating right now. He needs to be operating most efficiently out of advantage opportunities, and putting him at the 5 makes that so much easier. He gets a ton of lobs, kickouts, pick and pop, pick and roll, all this stuff. Get him moving towards the rim. Get him in an advantage situation. Allow him to provide your offense with great spacing because of his shooting ability while playing at the 5. That's a much better situation for him right now than just isolation in the mid post or on the perimeter and trying to dribble through a ton of guys, because his handle is good, but it's not strong enough, and he's not strong enough to dribble through the defense and get through help defenders and all that stuff. He's going to get knocked off his spot. So putting him in advantage situations, and more importantly, playing him at the 5, is so much better for him right now. And interestingly, last night, we're starting to see a lot of the passing instincts as well. Like, a lot of bigs around the league are getting better at interior passing because a lot more teams are playing, short roll stuff, or they're getting a guy on the baseline and then still someone in the paint. And there's a lot of really good interior passing right now happening in the NBA. And Wemby's doing that, but there's also, some of these backdoor cuts allowing him to operate at the top of the key. And again, all that goes back to him at the 5, having all that spacing that not only he creates, but the Spurs have a couple of decent spacers on the team as well. And if you're going to start to have Victor Wembanyama being as impactful as he is defensively, and then you're going to throw in some of this passing instinct stuff in addition to the spacing, it's going to get scary really quick. Defensively, him at the 5 also works so much better. Like, I understand theoretically the idea of having Wemby out there alongside someone like Zach Collins, allow him to roam a little bit, play off of somebody and just kind of chill in the paint. But at the 5, that's honestly a little bit easier for him because he can just post up at the rim. He can just chill, wait for someone to get to the rim, and that's how he ends up with 7 blocks. Occasionally, there's going to be some rebounding issues because he is skinnier, but then he's probably just going to get the block anyway. And as long as you can find the non-shooter on the floor that Wemby can just sag off of and put a handful of other decent defenders out there, you're going to have a pretty solid defense. And again, all this goes back to Wemby being at the 5. Him alongside someone like Zach Collins is fine until one of them has to guard a legit perimeter 4. In that case, either it's a mismatch because Zach Collins has to guard that guy, or you're taking Wemby away from where he is most effective defensively, and that is at the rim. He can guard on the perimeter, just like offensively, he can create some in isolations in the mid-post and things like that. But the best way to use him right now, in terms of helping the team win games, in terms of increasing his confidence, in terms of increasing his efficiency, is playing him at the 5 and putting him in advantage situations offensively and sticking him at the rim defensively. Long term, maybe he's going to be a more devastating, isolation guy offensively. Maybe he's going to be someone that plays at the 4. But right now, based off this game, based off a handful of others recently, this feels like his long-term destiny of him at the 5 spot. And when you have a player as talented as Wemby is, one of the decisions that you have to make, that San Antonio has had to make, is, do we let him do everything because he's capable of everything, or do we put him in a position to best be successful and do the things that he's best at? He's capable of guarding on the perimeter. He is capable of creating his own offense, but those aren't the things that he's best at. He's best at protecting the rim, and he's best at working out of advantage situations. And right now, it's clear that they have moved more in the direction of what is he best at? What can he do to help us win right now, rather than sticking him in situations that might be more developmental, but he's just not going to be as good at right now. That may or may not turn out to be the right decision in the long term, but it's clear what they're doing right now. Bottom line is, despite some weird moments for each of these guys throughout the season, whether it be Scoot's weird start to the year with the turnovers and all that stuff, or some of the struggles that Wemby has had offensively from an efficiency standpoint throughout the season, both of these guys are unbelievably talented. And obviously Wemby looked much better in this one, certainly statistically as well, but the future is extremely bright for both of them. Some areas of improvement for both of them. For Scoot, just continuing to get more efficient with these jump shots, and most importantly with his finishing. There's some better finishing stuff lately. There's one move in particular from last night where he kind of got around Wemby and used a long step and an underhand scoop shot to get to the rim, and it looks clean. And when he's making shots at the rim, it looks really, really good. But just continuing to improve on that, because if he's going to be a 6'2 guard that's only going to be, a slightly above average shooter at best throughout his career, he has to be an awesome finisher to be a really good player. Continue to improve on that. And for Wemby, I understand wanting to do a lot of the really cool, perimeter stuff in isolation and all that, but right now, it probably makes more sense for him to not force things as much as he was at certain parts of the year. I know the team isn't great, but the long-term goal is for Wemby to learn to play the right way and learn to trust his teammates. And I don't want him to get into this concept of having to force everything. And sometimes that is the case. I think that gets easier when he plays at the 5, but still, sometimes that is the case with him. Those are areas of improvement for each of those guys. And obviously this will get much easier for each of these guys as the teams get better, as Scoot, potentially moves into that starting point guard role at some point, and as Wemby has, some actual good guards around him on the team. But the future is very, very bright for both of them.